What if, at the end of each season, we gave out awards for the worst player at each position? Here are the opposites of NFL All-Pros, the Barely Pro Awards. At quarterback, the choice was kind of hard, because we could have went with Daniel Jones, who just got a huge contract and absolutely shit himself. We could go with Josh Allen or Dak Prescott, who continued to live the same season over and over again on repeat. We could even potentially give this award to Trevor Lawrence, who entered the season with a heavy favored Jacksonville Jaguars to win their division, but somehow came in third. But no, we're giving the award to the quarterback that led the NFL in turnovers this year, because he had so many you might not believe the total number. Washington quarterback Sam Howell turned it over 25 total times in one season, and he finished some games with a QBR as low as 2. You heard me right, 2.02. Not to mention that this offense was loaded with weapons. Despite it, guys like Jahan Dotson and Terry McLaurin had their worst career years. And Sam Howell was benched for Jacoby Brissett for no reason at the end of the year, because Jacoby Brissett actually improved the team. Sam Howell was so bad, Washington didn't even let him tank for him. At running back, this hurts me, because there was an RB in the NFL this season who led the league in fumbles, despite being 31st in the NFL in carries. And this Barely Pro selection goes out to all the fantasy football players as well. Austin Ekeler was a top 5 pick in most fantasy football drafts, and he ended up finishing as RB, this can't be right, RB 26. In fact, the Dallas defense scored only 6 less fantasy points than Austin Ekeler this year. This is a guy that prides himself on winning you your championship, but it seems like this year he lost everyone who drafted him their fantasy championship. But hey, with every positive, there's a negative, and every negative, there's a positive, because our Barely Pro wide receiver selection is going out to Davante Adams. I saw in the comments of the video that a lot of people wanted to see Kadarius Toney get this selection, but something that is key to being selected to the Barely Pros is, 1, I have to hate the player personally. You got a biased award nominator. And 2, I feel like there has to be some expectations for you to be close to an All-Pro in the first place for you to get selected to the Barely Pro award. Because I could just pick any Joe Schmo wide receiver for this award that had 0 catches on 0 targets this year. Davante Adams was the second highest paid wide receiver in the league in 2023, yet he had 7 drops and only 6 30-plus yard plays. Davante Adams had more drops than big plays this year. He also only had 8 total touchdowns, which is a lot for most receivers, but keep in mind that this dude has 43 touchdowns over the last 3 seasons. Keep in mind also, in 50% of his games this season, Davante Adams had less than 60 total yards receiving. You can blame it on the quarterback, you can blame it on the coaching, you can blame it on whatever the fuck you want. Doesn't change the results. And the results were that Davante looked like he didn't want to be on the team every single week, just about. Me personally, even with them hiring Antonio Pierce, I think Davante Adams wants to be a New York Jet. Maybe wishful thinking. Which brings me to tight end, where we have a selection that may be a perennial selection year after year for years to come. Kyle Pitts, who only averaged 39.2 yards receiving per game this year, a pitiful 15th in the NFL. What really warrants this Barely Pro pick is the fact that Kyle Pitts had a league-low run block grade of 31.2 out of a tight end that was drafted with a top 5 pick. Now, Kyle Pitts wasn't drafted to block, he was drafted to score touchdowns, but Jimmy Graham this year on 6 targets had more touchdowns than Kyle Pitts. I rest my case. Let's go on to the offensive line, which is pretty much the entire Giants O-line. Your tackle Barely Pro is Giants tackle Evan Neal. Your offensive guard selection for the Barely Pro roster is Justin Pugh. And the Barely Pro center selection is John Michael Schmidt. They gave Daniel Jones no fucking chance this year. And all 3 of these players had some of the lowest run and pass block grades at their position in the NFL. It's just crazy that they're all on the same team. Your Barely Pro kicker is going to be Anders Carlson. Now, I know Daniel Carlson's a fucking beast, but his little brother didn't quite get the golden leg. He missed 47% of his kicks beyond 40 yards, which means when Anderson Carlson has to kick a field goal longer than 40 yards, he only makes half of them. On top of it all, Anders had the lowest extra point made percentage in the NFL. Picking a return specialist for this roster was tough, but I ended up on Jets returner Xavier Gibson. Not because he's a bad returner. He's been one of the better returners in the league over the last couple of years. But he only averaged 15 yards per return, with a league-high 4 fumbles as a return specialist. He had 55 attempts and only returned 1 for more than 40 yards. Moving on to defense, where your cornerback barely pro selection was really easy. J.C. Jackson. He finished the year with a coverage grade of 30.8. These grades are out of 100. J.C. Jackson gave up a total of 5 touchdowns this season. Pretty sure all 5 were to Tyreek fucking Hill. And he was so bad that the Los Angeles Chargers GM actually had to apologize to his defensive backs room, basically saying signing this guy was the worst decision he made in his entire life. And this is the same guy that hired Brendan Staley. Safety was tough to pick, but I ended up going with Bengals safety Nick Scott for this one stat. Nick Scott played 569 snaps this year as a Bengals safety, and he forced 0 turnover. He broke up 0 passes, and he was benched halfway through the year for rookie Jordan Battle. Your defensive line barely pro selection is actually going out to a Hall of Famer, well, future Hall of Famer, Von Miller, who had 0 sacks in 12 games, career lows in tackles, QB hits, QB hurries, and both pass and run stop grades. There was a linebacker who missed 25% of his tackles this year. Yes, you heard me right. He missed 25 tackles and only made 77 tackles this season. What? It's Giants linebacker Micah McFadden. Lots of Giants in the barely pro rosters. I don't think a single Giant made the all-pro rosters. Which brings me to the coaching staff. Your defensive coordinator is going to be former Chargers head coach Brendan Staley. This was a defensive guru who somehow had the 32nd ranked defense. Glad that's over. Your offensive coordinator is going to be Josh McDaniels, who was an offensive guru who somehow had a bottom 10 offense. Davante Adams on the team. His choice of quarterback, Josh Jacobs. What more do you need? I know what Josh McDaniels needed for success. And our barely pro head coach selection goes out to the one, the only, Riverboat Ron Rivera, who somehow coached a team with top 10 talent in the NFL to the 2nd overall pick. Here are the full barely pro rosters. Let me know if I got these selections correct in the comments section below. Who was the worst at each position in the NFL this year? Whether you liked my picks or disliked my picks, please like the video. It helps out a ton in the algorithm. And subscribe to the channel so you can be here for my next upload here on YouTube. You know that we make amazing short form content on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, you name it. I'm really trying to take my content creation to the next level with these YouTube videos. So please support the channel. I'll see you guys on my next upload. Who will be the barely pro selections of 2024? I guess sooner rather than later. The ball won't lie. Smack him in the mouth.